Near-death experiences are not a break from the norm. They perhaps do not happen every day, but when they do happen, anyone could be affected. Even the biggest of personalities can be victims. Football players are always in our faces, so sometimes we tend to think they are invincible. Well, these guys have blood flowing through their veins like every other person, so they are not immune from near-death experiences. Although this is not a regular occurrence, just like the average person, football players too almost die. These are 15 football players who almost died. Kaká. You perhaps remember Kaká for his glorious days as an AC Milan player and maybe for his short stint with Real Madrid. But did you know that this Brazilian player you so adored almost never made it to your TV screen? Kaká almost lost his life while still a teenager. How did this happen?
Fui amadurecendo na fé e, claro, até hoje, cada dia para mim é uma experiência maravilhosa com Deus.
The one-time Ballon d'Or winner was already playing football professionally when he almost died. However, he was not in Europe yet. Kaká once fractured his vertebra after diving into a shallow pool. Several years after this incident, not many people know how bad it was. However, those that knew the Milan legend at the time almost did not expect him to keep playing football. There was a likelihood he was never going to walk. Well, that incident is history, and the Brazilian is a legend of the game. Kaká's situation could have been avoided if he had merely walked into the pool. However, this next player couldn't have been in control of the situation. Christian Eriksen. If anyone had told Christian Eriksen that he wasn't fit to play against Finland in Euro 2020, he would never have believed. Although he looked great, he just wasn't fit. Eriksen came into the game like every other player, mentally and physically prepared, or so he thought. The Danish player was perhaps ready for the game mentally, but his heart just wasn't prepared.
Biggest part of the games, I think we were in a good position to get the 3 points. Obviously, the goals were tough. The moments we conceded, but in the end, we 0 points, which is not good enough.
Right now, it is easy to dismiss the gravity of Eriksen's cardiac arrest. However, what the world sees as the Manchester United player simply having a cardiac arrest, the Danish team doctor sees as death, as he claims the player was out for a couple of minutes. Christian Eriksen has to be the luckiest man on the planet. He was able to pull through this condition without having to give up his football career. Not everyone has a career after a cardiac arrest, and Fabrice Muamba understands this. Fabrice Muamba. Muamba and Eriksen both played in the EPL at different times. However, this is not the only thing they have in common. Almost a decade before Eriksen had a cardiac arrest, Muamba experienced the same. This was in a match between Bolton and Spurs. It is easy to assume Muamba was lucky to have survived this incident. However, beyond being lucky, the players around him played a major role in helping him stay alive after he collapsed.
I think the way social media is, I think it's important that people like Raheem use the platform to knowledge what's happening and also let everybody know what's the situation. So hopefully going forward, everybody notify the situation and that could be dealt with as.
Muamba was fortunate that things did not get ugly. Unfortunately, he had to hang his boots. Lionel Messi. If Muamba and Eriksen's experiences make it seem like the worst that can happen to a footballer on the pitch is having a cardiac arrest, then you might want to know what happened to Messi in 2017. You see, Barcelona and Juventus were up against each other in the Champions League, and the game was perhaps the most important of the Argentines' year. Already, Barcelona had lost the first leg by 3-0. So if Messi was going to get to the next stage of the Champions League, his team needed to score 4 goals.
Today we find ourselves in the final match. This game is for those who are unaware of our training and don't witness our day-to-day efforts.
Messi and Barcelona tried everything they knew, but things just did not want to go their way. At some point, they had no more tricks up their sleeves, but Messi still wasn't interested in losing. In the second half of this game, Messi tried winning a duel and he had to jump really high for this. Things did not go according to plan as he landed awkwardly and could have broken his neck. He was down for quite a while, but in the end, he was just slightly injured. Cristiano Ronaldo. Unlike Messi, who almost died because he wanted to win so badly, CR7 would have died because he was running late for training. Planet Football knows how dedicated CR7 is to the game, but regardless of this, he was almost late for training. One day, the Portuguese legend woke up to see several missed calls on his phone. His team had lost a match and his coach needed to get back to winning ways, so training was earlier than usual. CR7 knew he couldn't disappoint, and the only weapon in his arsenal that could help him at this point was the Ferrari he bought 3 days earlier. He had to be in training in less than 30 minutes, and his Ferrari could help with this. Well, in his haste, CR7 crashed his car, but luckily he got out without a scratch. CR7 clearly remembers his near-death experience, but this next player doesn't. Neymar. Neymar is no longer in Europe, but Europe will always remember him for his exploits. But did you know he was this close to not even kicking a soccer ball? The former PSG player almost died as a baby. His family got involved in an accident. It was raining heavily and visibility was poor. Although Neymar's dad wasn't driving a Ferrari, he crashed his car. Fortunately, no one died. The next set of players almost died after being kicked in a match. However, before we find out who they are, kindly like and share this video. Also, subscribe to this channel if you are new here. Petr Cech. Petr Cech won the Champions League with Chelsea in 2012, and Chelsea fans remember him for keeping the goalpost safe in the final match against Bayern. But a couple of years before this final, the former Chelsea goalkeeper almost lost his life. On the 14th of October 2006, Chelsea faced Reading in the Premier League, and Reading's Hunt hit Cech in his head while trying to score. Cech had a fractured skull and lived to tell the story, but things could have ended another way. The former Chelsea keeper got really injured after this blow. It was so bad he couldn't play football without having protective gear. As much as the protective gear showed how vulnerable he was, it was better than losing his life or even retiring from football. Cech's story is scary, but John Terry's is scarier. John Terry. John Terry and Cech had a lot in common, but the most dangerous thing they had in common is they were both kicked during a match and almost crossed to the other side of eternity. You might remember Terry as one of Chelsea's best defenders, but his loyal fans will never forget he was kicked in the face by Arsenal's Diaby in a Carling Cup final between Arsenal and Chelsea. After this kick, John Terry was unconscious and appeared to be choking on his tongue. Luckily, an Arsenal medical staff was around to help him get conscious. Fernando Torres. Speaking of Chelsea players that almost died on the pitch, Fernando Torres almost never lived to become the Champions League winner you remember him to be. He almost died long before he became a Chelsea player. The former Spanish international had a bad fall in a match between Deportivo La Coruña and Atletico Madrid. In the 85th minute of this match, there was an aerial duel between Alex Bergantinos and Torres which ended in a collision and almost got the former Chelsea player to choke on his tongue. The next player was also a Chelsea player and is perhaps the last person you expect to be in this video. Didier Drogba. Drogba is one of the toughest people to have played the game of football, but even tough people too died, and he almost died. Back when Chelsea were a physical team, Drogba, who is known for his physicality and aggression, almost died after his mid-air collision with Norwich City's John Ruddy. This collision caused the striker to have a heavy fall, and he couldn't continue with the game for a moment. He was taken off on a stretcher. However, he was better in a short while. Ryan Cresswell. Ryan is perhaps the least famous player in this video yet, but just like the other players in this video, he almost died too. However, the reason for him almost losing his life is very funny. He was addicted to painkillers because he wanted to be available for every game. When the doctor finally discovered he was addicted to painkillers, they were surprised he was still alive, as this habit could have killed him. He had to spend some months getting rehabilitated. If he had wasted any more time, he could have died. Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Zlatan, who happens to be one of the most arrogant players of this generation, almost got shot by a serial killer called Peter. This person was looking to kill Zlatan Ibrahimovic just because he wanted to be famous. Well, he looked for a perfect opportunity, but when this opportunity presented itself, he realized he was not with his gun. He went home to pick it up, but Ibro was gone by the time he returned. Ibro was lucky Peter was not with his gun. The next player was not so lucky, as his attacker did not leave his knife at home. Mesut Ozil. Mesut Ozil had been in Arsenal for a while, and as a big star in London, he probably felt untouchable. However, someone thought otherwise. The former German international had gone to spend some time with a former teammate. All of a sudden, two robbers were on the scene. Although he stood a risk of getting killed, this attack, which lasted for a couple of seconds, did not lead to his death. Kolasinac. Speaking of being attacked by robbers, things could have gone south if Ozil was alone, as these robbers were two. Fortunately, he was not alone. His teammate Kolasinac was around and somewhat shared the risk of being stabbed to death. Although Kolasinac was brave, things could have turned out ugly if this attack had lasted a little longer. David Beckham. Last in this video is former Manchester United player David Beckham, who many people never knew could have died before the new millennium. Beckham, who was considered to be one of the best things to happen to England before the 1998 World Cup, turned out to be one of the reasons England lost to Argentina. It all seemed like football in the minds of the players. However, the fans were not going to take this. After this tournament, Beckham got lots of death threats, so he and his wife had to stay indoors for a long time until it felt like the coast was clear. And we're done. Which of these players do you consider the luckiest? Let us know in the comments section below. See you in the next video.